Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, if you're sick of referendums already, surely not, then shield your eyes. Polls tell us that Scotland is more in favour of remaining in the EU than the rest of the UK, but there's been some suggestion that if the UK votes to leave, Scotland might in turn hold another independence referendum. Who better to tell us than Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon? I spoke to her at the Scottish Parliament earlier today. First Minister, I want to put an expression to you. The enduring principle of our case is that decisions about Scotland are best taken by the people who live there. Put in the word our country instead of Scotland, that's a pretty powerful argument for leaving the EU, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is. One of the many reasons I want Scotland to be an independent country is so that as an independent country in an interdependent world, we decide for ourselves the extent to which we share sovereignty and the organisations that we choose to share sovereignty with. I am somebody who believes in Scottish independence, but I'm also an internationalist. I want Scotland to be outward looking and play a full part in the world, and the European Union is an organisation I want Scotland, whether it's independent or part of the UK, to play a full part in.
But you could argue, and have some sympathy for the argument presumably, that the EU is a distant force that doesn't actually understand different countries' cultures or absolutely their needs.
For me, that's an argument for countries to be in there trying to change and reform the European Union and make it more responsive and more democratic. I do though just think this argument that being a member of the EU is inconsistent with being an independent country is nonsense. All 28 member states of the EU are independent countries, and if you go to Germany or France or Sweden
but Scotland's
and tell
not
them they're
an independent country.
No, sure, but yeah.
And actually no prospect of being so.
Well, we may agree to differ on that, but let's not go there just now. But you know, what I'm saying is whether Scotland is an independent country or part of the UK, I think it's better for our interests overall to be playing our part in the world, cooperating with other independent countries to deal with the issues, climate change, energy security, refugee crisis, that countries themselves can't deal with effectively.
Right, well let's look at some scenarios then. The scenario would be that Scotland votes to remain, but overall the United Kingdom votes to leave. Now, you've been repeatedly asked about whether or not there would be a Scottish referendum. I'm just going to ask you again.
There's a surprise.
Yeah. Will there be a referendum?
Look, I'm not going to get dragged, no matter how hard you try, I'm not going to get dragged too far into the realms of the speculative here, because I actually don't want that scenario to arise.
But it's only 4 weeks out, you have to be publicly,
but with the
surely.
greatest of respect, I think I'm entitled in those 4 weeks as somebody who believes that there should be a Remain vote to argue the case for a Remain vote, not only in Scotland but across the UK. I want Scotland to be independent. I've argued that for my whole adult life, but I don't want to see the UK vote to come out of the European Union.
On that basis, would you do anything it took? So would you share a platform with David Cameron?
Well, we've chosen to make our own case.
But would you?
Well, I'll take part over the next few weeks in some debates around the European Union membership, but I'll make the case that I think...
But would you share a platform with David Cameron?
There are no plans, as far as I'm aware, for me to share.
You?
Look, I'm not planning to share a platform with David Cameron, but this is much bigger than just individual politicians. This is about making the case.
Here's another scenario. Scotland votes to remain. England narrowly votes to leave.
I'm having to try hard to keep up with all these hypothetical situations.
This is one of only two I'm thinking about just now.
Okay.
Scotland votes to remain, England votes narrowly to go, and Scotland's vote pulls England over the line. What would the atmosphere be like then with our relations with England?
Again, I'm not going to get dragged into the speculation around that any more than I hope, and what I am going to focus on for the next 4 weeks is playing my part, albeit my small part, in trying to make sure that there is a big, overwhelming vote in Scotland, and I hope there is also an overwhelming vote in the rest of the UK.
But if there is a vote in Scotland to remain and a vote throughout the rest of the UK to go, can you see a situation in which there wouldn't be the possibility of a referendum?
Look, I think if, and I've said this before, if Scotland is in the situation where we're faced with being taken out of the EU, even although we voted to stay in, particularly given the fact that we were told it was independence that imperilled our EU membership, then of course I think there would be many people in Scotland, not everybody, but many people in Scotland who said we've got to protect our EU membership, and looking again at independence is the way to do that.
If you were free to do so, and I say this because, as you know, migrations are one of the big issues around this EU referendum. If you were free to do so, would you take more non-EU migrants in Scotland?
Look, I think countries should have the ability, and Scotland should have the ability to set its immigration policy based on the needs of its economy. People coming to this country from other EU countries make a net positive contribution to our economy. We very rarely hear about that. The figures that are published today, the increase in net migration, on my reading, is as much to do with a fall in emigration as it is to do with an increase in immigration. There are as many people coming from outside of the EU as there are from inside the EU. So let's have a fact-based discussion about immigration, and let's not lose sight of that central point that EU migrants actually make a net positive contribution to our economy. And that's before we talk about the cultural and social advantages of having people able to come here and people from here able to go to other European countries.
Looking at who you think your main opposition in Scotland is, who is it?
Well, the principal party of opposition is the Tories, and you know that says, I think, actually more about the state of the Labour Party in Scotland than it does about the state of the Conservative Party. But I'm more interested in what my job is as the Government of Scotland, to lead Scotland, to tackle the challenges we have as a country and to seize the massive opportunities we have as a country.
If the day after the referendum, Scotland is out of the European Union, what will you do?
Well, I hope that's not the case, and you know, if that is the scenario we find ourselves in on the 24th of June, I will guarantee I will sit down with you and we'll have this conversation. But I'm going to spend as much energy as I can in the almost 4 weeks now between now and the 23rd of June, making the case for that not to be the scenario. I hope people vote, and I hope people vote in large numbers to stay in the European Union.
First Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was a promise from Nicola Sturgeon. In the event of an EU exit, she'll be on Newsnight on the 24th of June.
I've been getting away with it.